My grandmother's kitchen was the size of a parking space. She had one cast iron skillet, one good knife, and a drawer full of habits that fed 6 children on a postman's salary. And she never once ordered takeout. When I turned 52, I stood in my own kitchen. I had a drawer full of expensive gadgets I never used, a freezer stuffed with forgotten leftovers, and a stack of delivery receipts that would have made her cry. So I decided to go back to the way she ran her kitchen. And I am not exaggerating when I say this single decision has saved me more money than anything else I have ever done. Today I am sharing the 12 kitchen habits from my grandmother's era that I have personally brought back into my life at 52. Number 2 on this list is the one that shocked me the most. It is a trick she did with scraps and bones that was giving her family an entire extra meal every single week, completely free. Stay with me for that one. Let us start with the habits that happen before you even turn on the stove. Number 12, the Sunday evening menu. Every single Sunday after supper, my grandmother would sit at her kitchen table with a pencil and a scrap of paper. She would plan every meal for the entire upcoming week, not just dinner, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. She would pin that paper to the inside of her kitchen cabinet door. And for the rest of the week, there was never a question about what was for dinner. There was never a panicked trip to the store for one missing ingredient. Today we stand in front of our refrigerators at 6 in the evening, completely blank. We scroll through recipes on our phones for 20 minutes, then we give up and order pizza for $35. When I started doing this every Sunday evening, my monthly grocery bill dropped by nearly $300 because I was buying exactly what I needed and nothing more. No food waste, no emergency takeout, no impulse purchases at the store because I already knew what I was there for. $3,600 a year for 20 minutes of planning on a Sunday night. Number 11, shopping the pantry before shopping the store. My grandmother never once looked at a recipe and then went to buy the ingredients. She did the opposite. She opened her pantry, she opened her icebox, she looked at what she already had, and then she built the meal around those ingredients. Today we do it backwards. We find a recipe for Thai basil chicken on our phones. Then we drive to the store and buy $30 worth of ingredients we will use once and never touch again. The half-used bottles of fish sauce, the jar of lemongrass paste from 2 years ago, the spice drawer full of things you bought for a single recipe you made one time. When I started cooking pantry first, my grocery trips became shorter, cheaper, and far less wasteful. I buy staples in bulk and build meals around what I already own. Now these next few are the ones that genuinely changed how I think about food and money. Not just what I spend, but what I waste. Number 10, the oven maximizer rule. In the 1950s, turning on the oven was not taken lightly. Energy was expensive, so my grandmother had a strict rule. If the oven is on, it must be full, no exceptions. If she was roasting a chicken for dinner, she would slide potatoes in alongside it, maybe a pan of cornbread, maybe a simple dessert. 1 heating cycle, 3 results. She treated oven heat like a limited resource. Because it was, today we preheat an entire oven to bake a single tray of frozen chicken nuggets. We heat 4 cubic feet of air for 12 nuggets. When I started filling my oven every time I turned it on, I noticed 2 things immediately. My electric bill dropped, and I always had extra cooked food ready for the next day. Number 9, stretching meat with fillers. This is one of the smartest and most overlooked habits from that era. My grandmother never served a plain hamburger patty. She stretched every pound of ground beef by mixing in oats, breadcrumbs, grated carrots, and finely chopped onions. A single pound of ground beef became enough for a family of 8. The patties were just as filling. They were actually more flavorful, and they went 3 times as far. She did the same with meatloaf, casseroles, and meat sauces. The meat was the flavor, not the volume. The fillers were the volume. Today, a pound of ground beef costs $6 or more. When I started adding oats and vegetables to mine, that same pound started feeding my household for 2 full dinners instead of 1. Number 8, transforming stale bread instead of trashing it. In my grandmother's kitchen, there was no such thing as stale bread. Stale bread was not garbage, it was an ingredient, one of the most valuable ones she had. Stale bread became French toast for breakfast. It became breadcrumbs for coating and thickening. It became bread pudding for dessert. It was soaked in milk and folded into her famous meatloaf. The average American household throws away roughly $1,300 worth of food every year. A shocking amount of that is bread that went stale sitting on the counter. I have not thrown away a single piece of bread in over a year. When it starts to go stale, it goes straight into a freezer bag. When the bag is full, I pull it out and make breadcrumbs in my blender in 30 seconds. If you are enjoying these old-fashioned kitchen secrets, a quick subscribe helps me keep sharing them. Now let me tell you about the habit that I think every grandmother knew, but we have completely forgotten. Number 7, the bacon grease jar. Every single kitchen in the 1950s had a small glass jar sitting next to the stove. It was usually an old jelly jar or a small tin can. Every time my grandmother cooked bacon, she carefully poured the hot drippings into that jar through a small strainer. She never threw it away, ever. That jar of rendered bacon fat became her primary cooking oil. She fried eggs in it, she sautéed vegetables in it, she used it to season cast iron, she even spread a thin layer on toast. It was free. It added incredible flavor to everything, and it replaced bottles of expensive cooking oil that she would have had to buy at the store. I started keeping a jar of bacon grease on my counter 8 months ago. I go through far less cooking oil now. And honestly, eggs fried in bacon grease are a completely different experience. My grandmother knew what she was doing. Number 6, the kitchen triangle. This is one that sounds boring, but it genuinely transformed how I cook. In the 1950s, kitchens were designed around something called the work triangle. The stove, the sink, and the refrigerator were placed in a tight triangle so the cook could move between them with the fewest possible steps. But the triangle was not just about the appliance layout. My grandmother applied the same principle to everything in her kitchen. Every tool, every ingredient, every pot had a specific permanent home. Her wooden spoon hung on the same hook for 30 years. The salt was always in the same spot. She could cook an entire dinner practically with her eyes closed because she never had to search for anything. Today, most people spend 10 to 15 minutes just looking for things before they even start cooking. The cutting board is in the wrong drawer. The colander is buried behind the blender. The measuring cups are somewhere upstairs. When I reorganized my kitchen so that every single tool was within arm's reach of where I actually use it, my cooking time dropped by almost half. I stopped dreading making dinner because the setup that used to exhaust me had completely disappeared. Number 5, closing the kitchen after dinner. This one is deceptively simple but incredibly powerful. In my grandmother's house, once the dinner dishes were washed and put away, the kitchen was closed, done, finished for the day. Nobody went back in for a snack at 9 p.m. Nobody rummaged through the pantry at midnight. The kitchen had operating hours, just like a restaurant. Today we treat our kitchens like 24-hour convenience stores. We snack from dinner until we fall asleep. We graze all evening and then wonder why the groceries disappear so fast. When I started closing my kitchen at 7:30 p.m., 2 things happened. My grocery bill went down because I stopped eating a second dinner's worth of snacks every evening, and I started sleeping significantly better because I was not going to bed on a full stomach. Now we are getting to the habits that I think are the most powerful on this entire list. These are the ones that do not just save money, they change how you think about food entirely. Number 4, buying one good tool instead of 10 cheap ones. My grandmother had one cast iron skillet. One. She cooked everything in it. Eggs, cornbread, fried chicken, even pie. That skillet was given to her by her mother, and it still works perfectly today. It was never replaced. It was seasoned, maintained, and respected. Today we buy cheap non-stick pans for $15. The coating starts peeling after 6 months. We throw it away and buy another one. Over 10 years, we spend $150 on disposable cookware. My grandmother spent $5 on a cast iron skillet in 1953 and it outlived her. The math is not complicated. I invested in 3 quality pieces: a cast iron skillet, a heavy Dutch oven, and a good chef's knife. That was 2 years ago. I have not bought a single piece of cookware since, and everything I cook tastes better. Number 3, repurposing glass jars for everything. My grandmother never bought a single piece of Tupperware in her life. Every time she finished a jar of jam, pickles, or sauce, she washed it, removed the label, and put it back in the cabinet. Those jars stored flour, sugar, rice, dried beans, leftover soup, bacon grease, homemade dressings, everything. She had a whole shelf of them, all different sizes, all perfectly functional. Today we spend $30 to $50 on matching plastic container sets. Half of them lose their lids within a month. The other half gets stained with tomato sauce and look terrible. I stopped buying plastic containers entirely. Every jar that comes into my kitchen gets washed and reused. My pantry looks beautiful. It costs me absolutely nothing. And unlike plastic, glass does not stain, warp, or absorb odors. And now, number 2, the one I mentioned at the very beginning, the habit that gives your family an entire extra meal every single week for free. Number 2, the perpetual stock pot. This is the habit that I believe separates my grandmother's generation from ours more than any other. My grandmother kept a large, heavy-duty freezer bag in her freezer at all times. Every time she peeled a carrot, she threw the peelings in the bag. Every onion skin, every celery end, every chicken bone, every bit of leftover herb that was about to go bad, into the bag it went. And that bag was completely full. She dumped the entire thing into her largest pot, covered it with water, and let it simmer on the back of the stove for 3 or 4 hours. She strained it, and she had quarts of rich, deeply flavorful homemade broth made entirely from scraps that you and I would have thrown straight in the trash. That broth became the base for soups, stews, rice dishes, and gravies for the entire week. An entire extra meal, sometimes 2, from food waste that cost absolutely nothing. A carton of store-bought broth costs $3 to $4. If you make soup twice a week, that is $30 a month. My grandmother made something far better for $0. I have been doing this for over a year now. The bag in my freezer fills up every 10 days or so. Every batch produces about 8 cups of broth that is richer and more flavorful than anything you can buy in a store. And finally, number 1, the habit that ties every single one of these together. The one that made my grandmother's kitchen truly different from mine. My grandmother did not see her kitchen as a place where she prepared food. She saw it as a place where she transformed things. Scraps were not waste, they were ingredients. Stale bread was not garbage, it was tomorrow's breakfast. Bones were not trash, they were next week's soup. Every single item that entered her kitchen was used to its absolute limit before it left. Nothing was discarded until every last bit of value had been extracted from it. This is the philosophy of waste not, want not. And in my grandmother's generation, it was not just a clever saying, it was a moral code. Throwing away perfectly good food was not just wasteful, it was considered shameful. It was a failure of imagination, because if you were creative enough and patient enough, everything could become something. When I adopted this mindset in my own kitchen at 52, the change was not just financial, it was emotional. I stopped feeling overwhelmed by my kitchen. I stopped dreading cooking because I was no longer trying to create something from nothing. I was transforming what I already had. I stopped seeing leftovers as a chore. I started seeing them as a head start on tomorrow, and my entire relationship with food, money, and my home shifted in a way I never expected. That is what my grandmother understood, that most of us have forgotten. The kitchen is not a place of consumption, it is a place of creation. And when you treat it that way, everything changes. Those are 12 kitchen habits from my grandmother's era that have genuinely changed my life at 52. The first time I told my mother I was keeping a bacon grease jar on my counter, she laughed and said I was turning into my grandmother. I told her that was the best compliment anyone had ever given me. Which of these kitchen habits are you going to bring back? And did your grandmother or your mother have a kitchen trick that I missed? Tell me in the comments below. I read every single one of them. And next week, I am sharing something completely different. The boring, unsexy money habits that quietly made me debt-free at 52. Nobody talks about these because they are not glamorous, but they work better than anything else I have ever tried. I will see you there.